Then the second theory, in order to explain the theory of biological evolution after Lamarckism comes, is Darwinism. The name itself suggests that this theory was proposed by the scientist named Darwin in 1859, which is also known as theory of natural selection. This theory of natural selection or Darwinism was a theory in order to explain the concept of biological evolution. This theory of Darwinism he proposed in a book called Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. That is, this theory of Darwinism was much more trustworthy than that of Lamarckism. Thus, Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection was a book in which the Darwinism theory was proposed. Now let us study the main aspects of this theory. According to this theory, Darwin believed that new species originate from the pre-existing one. And therefore, all the present-day life forms are modified forms of organism that lived in the past. On this basis, the main aspects of this principle included various factors, beginning with the first, that is, large population. In this, according to Darwin, as we all know that the reproductive rate in all organisms is high, and therefore it would be not possible that all the organisms would survive. And if it would have occurred, then the population growth would reach to an unimaginable heights. Moreover, as we all know that all organisms of a species have specific requirements for living. Therefore, if all organisms reproduce and produce a large number of offspring, then the world will be flooded by them. Therefore, the population of a species should remain in such a manner that it remains almost the same from species to species. Or we can say almost same from generation to generation. In this manner, Although the reproductive rate of organisms will be high, but the survival of all organisms would not be possible, and thus the number of the all organism that belongs to a species, that a particular species, would remain same from generation to generation. The factors that would be responsible for decreasing or remaining constant population would be diseases, lack of food, then other natural factors like calamities, and many others. These would be the factors that would be responsible for maintaining the number of species or number of organisms within a population and stop increasing the unlimited large number of offspring within a species. Then comes the second factor, that is the struggle for existence. Or we can say survival. As stated earlier, due to large reproductive rate among the organism of a species, only few number of organisms within the species would remain constant from generation to generation due to various factors, and the number of population would stop increasing. However, as we all know that such a large population of organism occurs, but the natural resources or the factors on which they depend are limited. As a result of which, this large number of population cannot constantly live, because due to lack of such natural resources or factors, there will be few organisms among this large population that would die or not survive for a long time. And therefore, all organisms as a result cannot get sufficient resources. Thus, in this manner, a competition arises among organisms. This competition that occurs within organism for natural resources would occur and is thereby very essential. This type of competition that occurs within species can also be possible within the organism of different species if the requirement, that is of natural resources requirement, would be same. Thus, due to this competition among organisms for natural resources, the organisms will have to compete for survival, growth, and reproduction. Following it, the third aspect that comes is natural selection or survival of the fittest. According to this point, as stated earlier, that competition among organisms for specific source would arise, and therefore some may get it and some may not. As a result, the death rate among organisms would balance the birth rate of that of the organism, whether in the same species or other. As a result, the organisms that would succeed in gaining the natural resources would live longer and also reproduce, while the others will die. In this manner, the number of organisms within a species or different species would remain constant, and therefore the hereditary characters of such organism will survive to the next generation. Following it comes the fourth aspect, that is variation. Now, the organisms who succeeded among such a large population would survive. However, all the individuals, that is all the organisms that survive within same species or different would not be same or would be alike. So such a difference between all such organisms within a species can be defined as variation. That is, differences in the characters amongst individuals of a species can be defined as variation. And therefore, it is due to this variation that different organisms exhibit different kinds of characters within the same habitat or different that belongs to either same species or different. And on this basis, organisms live a life that is adapted to their environment. Those organisms which can use their environment in this way can succeed, and those who cannot fail, that is die. Those variations that are suited to their environment survive and succeed is called survival of the fittest. Thus, according to Darwinism, survival of the fittest occurs within the organism when the variations gets suited, that is adjusted to the environment survival, and therefore succeeds amongst the organism, then the organism can be termed as exhibiting survival of the fittest. And therefore, on this basis we can say that natural selection, that is the theory of natural selection, operates, that is functions, on variations from generation to generation. Thus, these were all the aspects of principle that constituted or proved the Darwinism theory. Although this concept of Darwinism was much effective than Lamarckism, but still it had few limitations. Like, in this concept, that is the theory of natural selection, it did not explain the origin of variation. That is, if the characters are hereditary in nature, then for this, which type of genes are responsible? Such a thing was not explained by the Darwin. And therefore, if we can explain the mechanism of inheritance, we can explain the variation in offspring and their conservation over generation. But only due to this limitation, that is, the gene concept, the Darwinism was not completely considered as true.